With Season 3 of The Mandalorian and the long-awaited Ahsoka series starring Rosario Dawson, 2023 is looking like it will be a great year for Star Wars shows. But these aren't the only two new shows that will start in 2018. After shows like The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, which were more Western-themed, and shows like Andor, which were political thrillers,
Senator, the Empire is choking us so slowly. We're starting not to notice. What I'm asking is this. Wouldn't you rather give it all to something real? I need all the heroes I can get.
For the greater good.
Call it what you will.
Let's call it war.
Star Wars is going in a different direction with Star Wars Skeleton Crew. This show has an all-star cast and crew, and the impressive Jude will lead a much younger cast. John Watts and Chris Ford, who worked on Spider-Man: Homecoming, are the main people who made the show. This will be their first time working in the Star Wars universe, but their other work has been well liked by a lot of people. Producers Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who have worked on almost every Star Wars TV show except for Andor, will help them. At the moment, we don't know much about the show, but here's what we do know about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. When and where is Star Wars Skeleton Crew coming out? We don't have an official release date for Star Wars Skeleton Crew yet, but we know it will be out sometime in 2023. So based on what we already know, we can estimate a general release date. We know that the series started filming in Los Angeles in September 2022, and it usually takes about a year and a half for a Star Wars show to come out. Also, we know that The Mandalorian will come out in February 2023, and that Ahsoka will come after it, since filming for that show will end in the fall of 2022. This means that the show could come out in the middle or end of summer, if Lucasfilm doesn't want to release their shows at the same time, as they have avoided in the past. Based on this, we can guess that Skeleton Crew will come out in the fall or winter of 2023, but again, this is just a guess. Like all the other Star Wars shows, this one will only be on Disney+. Thank goodness, Disney keeps adding more places where Disney Plus can be used. The streaming service is currently reaching out to more people in the Middle East and Africa. That means that Disney Plus is currently available in 130 countries, so everyone can easily watch Star Wars. However, Skeleton Crew is not for kids. Watts says that even though Skeleton Crew will have 4 kids in the cast, it is not a kids show. Star Wars is usually thought of as a family-friendly franchise because it tells simple stories with complex characters and in a way that gives adults enough respect to enjoy it. Watt's comment doesn't prove that Skeleton Crew will be a dark show, but it does suggest that it will have more violent and possibly upsetting moments than most Star Wars stories. Who's in the cast of Star Wars Skeleton Crew? So far, we don't know everything about the show's cast. Most likely, this is because many of the cast members will be underage, which could mean a lot of new faces. Hopefully, the actors and actresses will be just as good as the new faces we saw on Netflix's Stranger Things, who are now stars in their own right. There have been rumors that Kariana Crater, Bunked, and Ravi Cabot-Conyers and Kanto will be in the cast. They would make sense in these roles, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. From what we do know about the cast so far, Jude is the most famous. He is well known for his many roles in niche and popular media, as well as for his work on franchises like Captain Marvel. Law's character will be the one who takes care of the rest of the cast the most. Yes, another adopted father figure in Star Wars. Will Star Wars Skeleton Crew cross over with other Star Wars shows? In terms of the Star Wars timeline, many of the current projects are happening in a short amount of time. In a recent interview, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni talked about how complicated those timelines are and the chances that come from the fact that they overlap. When Favreau talked about his work on The Mandalorian's 4th season, he made sure to point out the interesting way he rewrote Skeleton Crew.
But then there's also so many characters in Star Wars and so many time periods that we draw upon that we're often making charts of how things would intersect and how things would impact one another. But
I think the challenge is actually not when you start, it's where we are now, so many seasons in with Mando. So we don't just have Star Wars history and lore that came before us, we have our own that have been built up on, say, just the Mandalorians and the culture of wearing helmets and not helmets and how do those things intersect, which has become a big story point.
This doesn't mean that the two shows will interact, but given how close the creators are and how similar their timelines are, it seems like a missed opportunity for them not to. If there is to be a crossover, it will probably have to happen in the second season of Star Wars Skeleton Crew or the fourth season of The Mandalorian. What do we know about the plot of Star Wars Skeleton Crew? In the Star Wars Skeleton Crew timeline, 9 years have passed since the Battle of Yavin. For those who aren't familiar with the fluid timeline of Star Wars, this event takes place 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi, and begins almost simultaneously with the premiere of The Mandalorian Season 1. The creator of the show, Jon Watts, has already stated that this will not be a kids' show, which should put your mind at ease if you were concerned that the show might be geared solely toward children. At Star Wars Celebration 2022, he made a number of comments that lend credence to the idea that this show will feature some more sinister undertones. In a recent interview, Jon Watts and Christopher Ford described the show as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films from the 1980s. They said this in reference to the Star Trek franchise. The show primarily focuses on the adventures of 4 children who hail from a planet that has never before been mentioned in human history. They end up disoriented in the vast Star Wars galaxy that we are all familiar with and adore. It shouldn't come as a surprise that we haven't seen much more than a few photos and designs of the show so far, because filming has only recently begun. However, that has not stopped some sly Bothans from trying to learn more about the situation. On the set of the Bespin Bulletin, some sly Bothans from the publication took photographs of what appears to be a separatist tank. Given that the events of this show take place a significant amount of time after the Clone Wars, we are at a loss to explain why one of these would be present on the set. It's possible that this is a flashback for one of the adult characters from the Clone Wars, but that's just one explanation. It's possible that a random warlord still has some of the old equipment that he stole from an Imperial warehouse, but it's not very likely. In either case, this turns out to be a surprising development that keeps us guessing about what the first season will bring. What's the future of Star Wars Skeleton Crew looking like? We do not yet know if there will be more than one season of the show, despite the fact that the premise of the show is intriguing and has a great deal of potential. The plot of the show is supposed to revolve around a young adult coming of age, similar to how we followed Elle's development throughout the events of Stranger Things. We are also aware that Disney has invested a significant amount of time and resources into the series. This, in addition to the high praise received from the show's top producers, demonstrates that this show will be around for a considerable amount of time. The galaxy in Star Wars is vast, and there are many exciting places for a group of young people to discover and discover together. When the show finally premieres, we will hopefully get some information about Skeleton Crew Season 2, so stay tuned for that.